Hello guys, welcome back, and today we're going to talk about a big trade between the Arizona Coyotes and the Chicago Blackhawks. Now in this video I'll be detailing the trade, the players that were traded in this trade, and of course my opinions on the trade itself. Now this trade was first reported by the legend Elliotte Friedman himself about an hour ago. It really came out of the blue. I don't think anybody expected Arizona and Chicago to connect for another trade, but out of the blue we got word of it, and of course bits and pieces came out, and of course now we have the full trade details. So let's get into the gritty, nitty details of this trade, and we'll start with the players going back to the Chicago Blackhawks. And the Blackhawks do get two players in this trade. They got Dylan Strome and Brandon Perlini from the Arizona Coyotes. In exchange, going to Arizona, you got Nick Schmaltz, a longtime member of the Chicago Blackhawks, of course, what was looking to be one of their younger players and what was looking to be a part of their core for the future, now gets shipped off to Arizona. Now for the baseline trade, it's Nick Schmaltz for Brandon Perlini and Dylan Strome. So let's go behind the stats on each of these players to determine who won this trade. Now we'll start on Nick Schmaltz's end, the guy getting shipped off to the Arizona Coyotes. He's played 23 games so far with the Chicago Blackhawks this season. He's gotten 2 goals, 9 assists for 11 points. He's gotten a 51% cords for percentage, which is not bad at all. And Nick Schmaltz, when it came to the Chicago Blackhawks, he was by far my favorite Chicago Blackhawks player. So seeing him shipped to Arizona is something that I like to see. The Blackhawks are my favorite team in the world. Of course, most of you guys know that already. But when it comes down to it, I'm liking Nick Schmaltz going back to Arizona because I think that's a piece that can really fit well into their system. And when we look at what Chicago got back, this is where I really start to be concerned for Arizona's sake. And of course, they get Brandon Perlini and Dylan Strome. We'll start with Dylan Strome, who has played 19 games so far this season with the Arizona Coyotes. He's gotten 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points, a 52% cords for percentage. The cords for percentage ain't bad, but you want to see better from a player that was drafted 3rd overall a few years ago. And so far, he definitely has that bust label to his name. And with Chicago, if he gets shipped off, when he gets shipped off, I feel like that's a kind of change of scenery there for Dylan Strome, which might really help him in the end. Of course, when it comes back to his junior days in the OHL, I'm pretty sure he was with a line with Alex DeBrincat. So if he can spark some of that chemistry with Alex DeBrincat, I feel like that line can really get going. And I feel like Dylan Strome can really get going in Chicago. So I like that part about it for Chicago, and I think Dylan Strome will do well. Now, when it comes to Brandon Perlini, this is where it really hurts for me because Brandon Perlini is my favorite Arizona Coyotes player. In the last couple of years, he's really made a name for himself, I think, by how he's played, and I've really come to like the guy. So when it comes down to it, it's my favorite Blackhawks player getting traded and my favorite Arizona Coyotes player getting traded. So really, it's just a trade of players that I ultimately like a lot. Now for Brandon Perlini's stats so far, he's played 21 games, has gotten 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points, a 53% cords for percentage, which is very, very solid. And I've honestly really liked Brandon Perlini, especially this year, where I think he was pegged with Keller for at least some of the start of the season. I really like that line, and I felt like it worked pretty well throughout the season. And while he has slowed offensively, I don't feel like the luck has really been on his side so far this season. So I feel like going to Chicago, if he gets the right opportunity, and if he plays top 6 time, I feel like that can definitely work. And I feel like Brandon Perlini going to Chicago will give him a much bigger chance to really develop with some better players rather than Arizona, which, let's be honest, does not have the most dynamic offensive group behind themselves. Now, when it comes to Dylan Strome, I feel like he has a big chance in Chicago to do a lot of great things for that franchise and to really turn his career around. Of course, he was drafted 3rd overall in the 2015 NHL draft, and he was looked at as a guy that would be Arizona's future when it came to the center position, and it really has not turned out that way so far. And of course, going to the Chicago Blackhawks, he's going to get a good opportunity to play with maybe some better players there, and of course, having that Arizona connection there already, I feel like Strome is in a good opportunity to get a lot more points and get a lot more of an opportunity than he would have in Arizona. And for Dylan Strome, this might just boil down to a thing of needing a change of scenery. Of course, he's playing in Arizona for the past 2-3 years now, playing in the NHL, AHL, being back and forth, and he gets an opportunity to play somewhere else and to call somewhere else home. And playing in Chicago is not a bad place to play in. So I feel like Strome having a culture change, and while I think Arizona is a decent team right now, I feel like Strome was obviously not a fit from day one, and going to Chicago could change the course of his entire career. Now, going back to what I said earlier, Nick Schmaltz was my favorite player on the Blackhawks, and Ryan Hartman was my favorite player on the Blackhawks a year ago. He ended up getting shipped to Nashville. Now Nick Schmaltz is gone and off to Arizona. So while I do like Brendan Perlini, I'm not sure how well this bodes for my opinion of the Chicago Blackhawks in general. Of course, Arizona is getting a dynamic center that could do a lot of different things, play physical, play a lot of defense, and have some offensive upside. I feel like Nick Schmaltz brings a lot, and getting a big opportunity in Arizona is something that he might not have gotten in Chicago. So I feel like getting this in a breath of new fresh air. He's a talented guy, and I feel like he can definitely flourish in Arizona if this trade works out well for them. But again, when it comes to Chicago, this might be one of the biggest gambles that they've taken in their franchise history. Having Magic Beans and a guy like Dylan Strome, well, I think it is valiant. I feel like it has possibility to end really, really bad for Chicago. Now, I really do like Brendan Perlini, so it does have that upside to it. But Dylan Strome is a huge gamble for Chicago. Does that end up working out? Does it actually fail on them? It's going to be really interesting to see in 3 or 5 years if this trade actually works out and who ends up winning this trade, because I could see either way happening. But when it comes to my opinion on this trade, I'm really, really conflicted, because when I first saw this trade, I was hands down on the side of Chicago. I thought they won this hands down. But the more and more I think about it, the more I actually like Schmaltz developing in that Arizona system. I feel like he's a pretty good fit there, and Dylan Strome obviously was not a good fit in Arizona. We saw that throughout the short stint of his career so far. Brendan Perlini is a nice player for Chicago. I think he's going to do very, very well there. But for right now, I think the team that gets better in this trade is the Arizona Coyotes. At least right now, I feel like the Arizona Coyotes are a better team because of it. Now, this is not to say that Chicago can win this down the line, especially if Dylan Strome actually gets going with the Chicago Blackhawks. This trade could look completely different. But I feel like right now, Nick Schmaltz has the edge when it comes to overall game and overall WAR, and I feel like when it comes down to it, the Arizona Coyotes will get better with this trade. Now, of course, they make a huge gamble in giving up Dylan Strome so early on in his NHL career, but so far, it just has not worked there in Arizona, and I feel like they might as well have traded him while he still had as little value as he had. But again, when I look at this trade, I feel like Schmaltz is going to be a good add for Arizona. I feel like Perlini is going to go really, really well in the Chicago lineup. But the big X factor, I think, with this trade is, of course, Dylan Strome. And, of course, what happens with his career in Chicago. If he plays well, if he starts to really get his name going and get his career going with Chicago, that might be a good trade for them. But I feel like this ultimately comes down to what Dylan Strome develops like in Chicago and, of course, if he gets that opportunity. But for my final answer, I think I'm going to pick the Arizona Coyotes as the winner in this trade. At least right now, I feel like Arizona won this trade. It all depends on Dylan Strome and what happens with his career in Chicago. But right now, on November 25th, I feel like the Chicago Blackhawks lost this trade and the Arizona Coyotes won it. But of course, this trade could go either way, I feel, so let me know what your thoughts are on this trade, what your initial thoughts were, and of course, what do you think of the players, and who do you think won this trade? Now, if you want some more videos to binge watch, you can watch this video where I talk about the Buffalo Sabres and if they're the best team in the NHL. But of course, that is going for today, guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, comment down below your thoughts on this trade and who you think won this trade. And I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.